I now call this public hearing of the Bryan Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board is going to recess the public hearing to allow time for some other items on our agenda. So the time is now 6:02. I will now call to order the regular meeting of the Bryan Independent School District. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. And we are going to go out of order a little bit on our agenda. We will come back to that public hearing after we do more fun things. So the first thing that we want to do for our spotlight is a donation from the Donald and Donna Adams Family Foundation in the amount of $1 million to further the safety and security initiatives of Bryan ISD.
Yeah, may we clap for that one? Yes, thank you. So I have tonight here Mr. Matt Nash from representing the Donald and Donna Adams Family Foundation, who is bringing forward this $1 million donation. I would ask him to come up and stand with me and maybe say a few words. But from the financial standpoint, of course, we're very grateful for this extremely generous and timely donation. This will be placed, of course, in our efforts to enhance our safety and security efforts, protect our students and staff throughout as we go forward. I say it's timely because, of course, you all know the Texas legislature is going into session right now, and safety and security is a hot topic and a big item. So I'm sure there's going to be some things that they are going to come out with and mandate, and they fund some things, most things, but not all things. So this will be a very very helpful for us to have these funds to be able to fill the gaps or do anything else that we feel is necessary and needed for safety in our school district. Mr. Nash.
Well, thank you, Board, for letting me speak to you this evening. Once again, my name is Matt Nash. I'm here representing the Donald and Donna Adams Family Foundation. Mr. and Mrs. Adams have always had a passion for helping this community, whether it be through their foundation, American Momentum Bank, Miramont Country Club, or other affiliated companies. They continue to give back to this community. Concerning the unsolicited gift that's being presented to the Board of Trustees, a press release will be published and submitted to the media and to the school district for your use. And it includes quotes from Mr. and Mrs. Adams as it relates to this gift and their passion for school safety and security. The gift of $1 million is being given to Bryan ISD in good faith to be used at their discretion to enhance security and safety measures at the schools within the district. It's my honor to represent the Donald and Donna Adams Family Foundation as they give back to the community, and I will welcome any questions you have. Otherwise, I can share my contact with y'all, and y'all can ask me at a future time. So, thank you.
We're just incredibly thankful.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right.
Please share.
Thank you, sir.
And we want that.
I just want to say for the younger students out here that maybe haven't been in math that long, that's a 1 with 6 zeros.
That's right. And we want any time that we're working on things or building or whatever the money is going to, and they just want to pop in and see what's going on, they have an open invitation. Well, they have Sam Houston right around the corner from their house.
Mr. Nash, anytime you need to get a check out, just let us know. We're here to help. Just let us know. Thank you very much.
And we appreciate you being here tonight. I know that you have another visit to make later today, so we are thankful that we were first on your list, I think, and we're glad we could put you at the front of our agenda to do something so amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone who's present today. Citizens may make comments about topics relevant to district business. Topics should be limited to 3 minutes, and comments concerning specific students or personnel will be heard in closed session. We ask that you turn off all the sound on all electronic devices, which is reminding me that I may not have done that, and I had not, so. And we're now going to do the pledges. So please stand for the pledges that will be led by Jane Long Intermediate students. Woo!
Well, real fast, can I just tell you, I'm Dr. Desiree Caperton, the principal at Jane Long. These are some fabulous teachers I brought with me. Mrs. Candy Carrero, she teaches 6th grade science, and Ms. Dava Parker, 5th grade science. And these are just a few of our ambassadors. So come up here real quick, Eric. Say your name and your grade.
My name is Yerrick Ramirez, and I'm in the 6th grade.
My name is Victoria Lamb, and I'm in 5th grade.
My name is Adrian Subran, and I'm in the 6th grade.
My name is Carolyn Jensen, and I'm in 5th grade.
My name is Kingston Love, and I'm in 5th grade. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Hey, guys. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you all.
Yay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any comments tonight? None. All right, well, we will now proceed with our spotlight items. First, we have Board of Trustees Appreciation Month. So we met at 5:15 today to be greeted by many of our principals and school leaders throughout the district. And you can see all the piles of things they have so nicely collected for us. I believe each of us has a table of all the fun things, and we've had to bring boxes to be able to carry out all the fabulous items that you have brought for us. So on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I just want to thank you all, and I think Ms.
Yes.
Carabine has a statement.
If you don't mind,
Of
Dr.
course.
Harlan, we appreciate all of you so much. And I have just a little bit of information to share with our audience today, that yes, January is School Board Appreciation Month. And Bryan ISD is celebrating it in a very big way, because we thank our school board members for their dedication and their commitment to the district and its students. The theme of this year's School Board Recognition Month is Forward Together, which highlights the collaboration among school leadership, teachers, parents, and our students. Governor Abbott actually issued a proclamation stating, "To catch a glimpse of Texas of tomorrow, we need only to look into the classrooms of today." The proclamation also acknowledged the importance of locally elected board members. These boards set a vision to their district based on students' needs and community's values. And I actually have, if you don't mind, we'll take a photo. I have the proclamation from from Governor Abbott to present to each one of you tonight. So, Mr. Falls, if you'll come forward, and if board members, if you'll come down for a photo. Dr. Ibarra, if you'll help me distribute, or you'll move that, and I'll pass these out.
Exactly. Good luck. Jury never came in.
Not everyone knows, but school board trustees are elected volunteers, okay? I also often get asked, how much do we get paid for this role? And the answer is zero. Sometimes we spend money to do this job, but it is all work that is worthwhile, every minute of it. So we just want to thank everyone who supports the school district and supports the Board of Trustees as we try to do the great work to make this community and this district what we all want it to be. Children first, always.
Thank you.
All right, in our spotlight then, we will move to Elementary Teacher of the Month. From Jones Elementary, we're going to welcome Principal Alma Velez to recognize Rachel Nemec.
So good evening. My name is Dr. Alma Velez, and I am the proud principal of Anson Jones Elementary. And it is with great honor that I bring Rachel Nemec here as our elementary Bryan ISD Teacher of the Month. Just a little bit about Rachel. She's been teaching for 5 years, but you would never know it walking into her classroom. She is ever prepared and working diligently and persistently with her students. I've been able, in the short amount of time that I've worked with her, I've been able to see huge accomplishments with her students. She works with our early childhood special education students, so little 4-year-olds, and they just are so independent, and it's all because of the hard work and dedication that she pours forth each and every day that she's in our building. But not only does she serve our students, she also takes time to serve on several committees at the campus level as well as at the district level. She is our special education department chair, so she is also a mentor to her SPED team that she advocates for faithfully and persistently, and as well as, for her students, of course. And so she just, any ideas that teachers need for how to better serve their students, she's our go-to person. So it's just a great honor to work side by side her. I've learned and grown so much just in the semester that I've been with her. So thank you, Rachel.
Yes, there he is back there in the purple shirt, I think.
And we welcome our representative from Truist, as well as any family or friends who want to join. Truist gratefully sponsors a gift card for this award, so thank you. Congratulations. And moving to our secondary teacher of the month, we welcome Principal Tommy Roberts from Bryan Collegiate High School to recognize Annette Kirk.
Good evening. I'm Tommy Roberts, the proud principal of Bryan Collegiate High School, here to honor Annette Kirk tonight for the Bryan ISD Secondary Teacher of the Month. So since jumping on board at Bryan Collegiate, Annette has quickly garnered the respect of her colleagues because of her optimism, her incredible optimism, and her work ethic. Some of the examples of that is, she's involved with our sophomore class council. This year when class council started, Annette took that on, and it has exploded. They started meeting just in her classroom, and then it didn't take long before she came to me and said, hey, so I need to find a bigger room to meet because of all of the involvement of the sophomore class. At the outset, like I said, they were meeting in her room and then moved to another. Under her leadership, she also had a hand in planning out some incredible activities for our Red Ribbon Week back in October. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you're trying to engage high school students with activities like that, you know, it's quite the task. So her and her kiddos were able to come up with some door decorating contests, some fun dress-up days, and lots of healthy competition between some groups on our campus. And not to mention, she's also busy planning the spring dance at Bryan Collegiate with her group of kiddos. Watching her connect with students is a sight to behold. Whether she is building rapport with an upperclassman or an upperclassman, the approach is the same, making them feel valued and respected and holding them accountable for their actions. When students feel that their teachers care about them, the teacher wants what's best for them, and the teacher is confident in their abilities, that can be enough to move mountains, and that's exactly what you'll see when you walk into Annette's room on a daily basis. One of her sophomore kiddos commented in the nomination that she consistently demonstrates kindness. She's so sweet, and her compliments toward my work always seem genuine. So her unbelievable work ethic demonstrates what it takes to help kids from any background be successful. So that's why I'm happy that Annette chose Bryan Collegiate as her next home, and hopefully that she'll be there for quite some time. So, yeah. So we're here to honor her tonight for all of her efforts and her service at Bryan Collegiate and for the kids in Bryan ISD.
Ms. Waller, did you have anything to do with, I think you should mention that. That's a really good story.
Speak into the mic. Ruthie, can you talk in the mic?
Sorry, Ruthie.
When Ms. Kirk came to town, I think a friend of mine said, you should call Ruthie Waller and find out about teaching in Bryan schools. So 10 years ago, was it? You called and we had a conversation. I told you all about Bryan ISD, and the rest is history. Yay. We're so glad to have you.
Aww.
Yes.
Thanks.
Next, we have recognition of Crockett Elementary's curriculum integration with service learning.
All right, good evening. Come on up, guys. I will tell you, I don't know, the kids were very excited. They were like, is that the house? That's not the real house. That's a mock-up of the house. So, good evening. I'm Debbie Earhart. I'm the principal at Crockett, and I'm going to talk just a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to teachers and students. They are super excited. The day before Christmas break, we had a nice little check presentation to Miss Carabine, and she said, hey, you should come. So today's the day. So here we are to kind of follow up with that celebration, but I do want to introduce two of our teachers, Miss Susan Bozier, who was our teacher of the year last year, or 2 years ago, but also Aaron Knighting, who was an Aggie term, so part of that Aggie term process, so he's been a teacher with us for 2 years now at Crockett Elementary and doing an awesome job. So definitely some good folks, and then, Susan, do you want to talk about it? No. I'm going to let Susan talk about a little project. So with our Essential 8 habitat build, really third grade, Miss Earhart just stood back and said, I don't even know if they asked, honestly. I think we just went with it. But they want to tell you about a little project that they did to raise money, and the kids will talk as well.
Hello, my name is Samuel.
We're all third graders at Crockett.
Anthony Rodriguez,
Trinity Alvarado,
Lisa Devar,
Adeline Ponce, Paulina Morales, Aiden Cervantes.
So part of the curriculum for third grade is financial literacy, and that's in the month of December. So we tied it in with the Essential 8. Somebody want to tell them what the Essential 8 was that we did?
Philanthropy.
Philanthropy. Somebody want to tell me what philanthropy means? Oh, everybody's shy. You want to tell them about it?
Kindness and charity.
So we talked about that it was giving something and not getting anything back, like charity. So anyway, they got together, and what did you guys make?
Slime.
Slime. So we sold lots and lots of slime. We have about 75 third graders. And how much money did we raise for that?
$401.
Yes, we actually made a little more because more kind of trickled in. Does anybody remember? How much did we sell them for?
$1.
$1. So as you know, 400 things of slime at $1. That's a lot. But it was a lot of fun. And the kids, they did it all. They made it themselves. They packaged it. They put the orders together. And so it was definitely their job. And so it was a really good opportunity for them to see what it was like to do something for someone else. And what did we do? What were we collecting money for?
We were collecting Bryan ISD Habitat for Humanity.
Yay. Nice. So we just appreciate the opportunity to do that and tie our curriculum in with something that was so awesome as that. So it's wonderful to be a part of that. Okay. All right. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And here's the real check. We're going to give it back. And it only has 3 zeros, but it was a great check. And the kids had a great time. So he probably did. So thank you so much. I know when Ms. Carabine came, the kids said, we even donated our time. So I feel like that part of, they even felt like this is something they could do. And they were some slime hustlers. I am not going to lie. I was like, how much slime can we get? So the whole school helped out, and it was a great opportunity. So thank you for giving us that opportunity. It was great to see. And that's our little birdhouse that will go to our new little Habitat family. So that will go to their house when it's erected. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Crockett Rockets. Amazing.
Should we have them take a picture in front of the house as well with their children?
in front of the house.
Those children, they're so sweet.
They were precious. Yeah, they got here tonight. Is that the house?
Make sure we get the birdhouse
Yes, we
picture
want to
as
see
well.
the birdhouse.
Yeah.
Parents, get wherever you need to.
Nice. Woohoo. Good job.
Thank you all.
On number 5 on spotlight recognition, we are going to, reschedule for another time. It's my understanding the student was unable to attend tonight. And so that will move us down into our superintendent update.
Thank you, Dr. Harlan. I know Clay Falls is pulling up the presentation, but my goodness, we are off to a great start for the second semester of school in Bryan ISD. So many amazing things happening. It was hard to narrow the focus, but I want to start by inviting our community and just sharing the good news that we have our Ruby Halliburton groundbreaking for the auxiliary complex happening this week. It's this Thursday, January 19th, starting at 1 o'clock. Due to limited parking availability, we're asking that people actually park at the Expo Center, and we'll have Bryan ISD school buses shuttling people to the site. So you can arrive as early as noon, and we'll have buses going back and forth to shuttle people over to the site. So again, that's this Thursday, January 19th at 1 p.m. This is our complex named after Ruby Halliburton, one of our beloved school bus drivers. And the complex will house transportation, maintenance, operations, food services, custodial, a warehouse, and a much-needed professional learning and meeting space for our district. So we're super excited about the groundbreaking. Yesterday was a really exciting day. Many of us were able to attend the Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom March and Program sponsored by Delta Sigma Theta, and we didn't let a little rain get in our way of the celebration. We made it through all of the march and most of the program, and it was just another great day in Bryan ISD. There were many students receiving awards for the poster and essay contest, and I must brag and say that Bryan ISD dominated all categories, so it was really fun to see our kids recognized in that way. So just a great way to honor Dr. Martin Luther King, and the only thing was the keynote speaker at the end. It did start pouring, so we missed that portion of it, but the rest of it was actually fantastic. Moving on, as you know, it's very important for us to be engaged with our community. We do everything that we can inside the district with our students and staff, but it's just as important to connect with our community partners. So in this photo, you see the Bryan Noons Club out visiting our CTE complex, the CTEC Center. So they got a grand tour, they met our students, they talked to the staff, they saw the fabulous projects that are underway, and as the grand finale, final treat, the Rudder High School culinary students prepared a delicious lunch for them. So the Bryan Noon Club's members are out bragging on Bryan ISD and all that we have to offer at the CTEC. The Aspire Academy Information Nights are going very well. Packed houses at Rayburn and Long. We've had parent meeting nights, and fortunately, we recorded both events. So if there's any parents who missed the in-person information night, we have it all recorded, and they can log onto the website and watch it from there. So we're just very excited. You've heard all about this from Dr. Ibarra and her team, and the parents seem to be very excited, and all the information is out there on our website, and we're just happy to continue to talk about this good news and the big transition. Speaking of community engagement and partnerships, Texas A&M Engineering's department stepped up big with us and offered to loan us a tremendous amount of Lego robotics. So in these photos, you see many of our teachers throughout the district that have already gone through round one of the training, so they can teach our students all about Lego robotics. And we have another round of training that's forthcoming for more teachers to sign up, so that all of our elementary and intermediate schools can take advantage of this incredible STEM opportunity to provide to our students. It all integrates beautifully with our curriculum, so this is just an unbelievable opportunity, again, afforded by Texas A&M University's engineering department. And also with Texas A&M and engineering, Ross Elementary was able to partner with the group, and they had a mobile unit at Sol Ross Elementary come out, and they invited our students to spend the day learning all about engineering, science, technology, engineering, and math. And it was just an incredible opportunity, again, for our students, and we're so grateful for the many partnerships, again, for Bryan ISD. So as you can see today, just many great things happening in our district, and I could go on for hours sharing the good news, but we're just proud of our staff and our students and our community partners, and very thankful. Thank you.
Ms. Carabine, just for clarification, when I was reading about the shuttle and all to Halliburton groundbreaking, is that going to be, it sounds like it's going to be multiple buses, and if we get there by 12:30, should we make it on time, or do you know for sure?
Yes, we are running, I believe, 3 different buses, and they said every 10 minutes a shuttle will take you over to the site, and then they'll return everyone back to the Expo Center. Okay. So as long as you arrive by noon, we should be in good shape to get started right at 1 o'clock. So we're very excited about Thursday's events. Cross your fingers for good weather.
Thank you,
So I've got one question for, mainly for the people on the board from A&M. You might want to tell them that if we're learning robotics with the Lego kits, somebody needs to let engineering know they need to start reworking their first year curriculum. Because I think that's pretty much what first-year engineering is
Yes.
Lego robotics and
Yes.
challenges.
Yes, we're excited because our students in elementary are learning what kids used to learn in their first year of college. So that is a true statement. We're just so excited about all this. So it's a great day for our students, for sure.
So does sitting in your bedroom late at night playing with Legos all your life, does that count as any type of internship toward the program?
We will give you credit for that and invite you to take it to a whole another level.
All right, thank
Thank you.
We now also have an information item, O.W. Sadbury Senior Intermediate School Update.
Good evening. Alfred Scott, proud principal of Sadbury Intermediate, and I'm honored to be joined here today by Dr. Halcyon Watkins, daughter of O.W. Sadbury Sr., and his great-grandson, Anthony Neal. And we're here today to present to you guys not only our school colors, but our mascot. I'm so excited. So without further ado, let's go to it. So, if you guys look up, you can see that this school is named after O.W. Sadbury Sr., who was principal of Booker T. Washington Elementary School for 20 years. And this school was more than just a school. It was a neighborhood school, but it was a community school as well. And he's one of the pillars of our community. That being said, we searched and searched and searched and searched and said, what would be the appropriate school colors? And we couldn't think of anything more appropriate than being the original colors of that former Booker T. Washington Elementary School, which was royal blue and white. So that's our colors, royal blue and white.
Oh, it's amazing.
The mascot, on the other hand, that was a chore. So we not only wanted to honor Professor Sadbury. We not only wanted to honor him, but also the school and the students that would be coming through the school. So we wanted something that embodied not only his legacy, but the students that would be coming through the doors of O.W. Sadbury Senior Intermediate. That being said, we consulted his former students, and we found out they didn't have a mascot. There was no mascot. And so we told the students at Bonham and Navarro the story of O.W. Sadbury Senior, and we talked about his time at Tuskegee and his love for the Tuskegee Airmen. And of course, we all know that they drove the P-51 Mustangs. And not only that, we thought about, okay, what would represent the legacy of this great man, and what would also tell the story of the students that would soon follow and come through, and not only that, harken back to his students. So there was one mascot that kept coming up, and I can tell you we had aviators, we had the pilots, we had lions. Lions was an interesting one. They said that they looked at him as a lion protecting his cubs. And so that was interesting. But there was one that just kind of stuck out, and that would be the Mustangs. So when we told the students the story about O.W. Sadbury Sr. and his love for the Tuskegee Airmen, and the Mustangs, so that one was the one that won out. So we are the Sadbury Intermediate Mustangs.
Wow. Yay.
Oh,
wow.
that looks great.
That looks great. That's good.
Okay, and we have one more thing to show, is the video. Play.
Clay's doing it, I think.
I'm excited to go to Sadbury School because I can create new memories, new friends, and I can create history. I will be the first fifth grader to go to Sadbury Intermediate School when it opens next year.
Very happy and excited to go there already. I can see the building at recess and through the windows of our classroom, and I know that it's going to look good, like really good. I'm really excited to see the new library in the classroom.
Sadbury Intermediate was named after O.W. Sadbury Sr. He was one of the pillars of the Bryan community a long time ago. He was the first principal at Booker T. Washington Elementary, one of the great historic schools here in Bryan. His belief that all kids should be educated and could be educated carries on today in Bryan ISD.
I'm overwhelmed. I said, well, they brought him back to life. It's not just a school with his name. It's going to be a school with his spirit.
Since being named principal of this great school, I've actually had a chance to get out and meet the community and meet the kids. I went to Bonham and Navarro. I do lunch over there every Wednesday and Thursday just to get the kids used to me and me used to the kids, so the transition here is easier.
I like Mr. Scott because he's a good gentleman and he's really kind and funny.
I'm really getting along with him, and I think he's very, big-hearted.
Like a lot of features that we have, not only the collaboration areas outside of the classroom where kids and teachers will be able to go outside of the normal classroom, but we also have outside lunch area and an amphitheater where kids can go outside and extend the learning experience, as well as some of the fun things like a selfie wall in the cafeteria, where kids and parents will be able to go in front of the selfie wall of the Mustang and take pictures as a keepsake for themselves.
I see myself even more successful in the new school.
Mrs. Rhodes told me that when I have my own kids and they go to Sadbury Intermediate School, I can tell them that I went there when I was a kid.
I think that school is going to be so structured that they're going to produce some very productive young people, and they're going to be proud of themselves. And so I'm proud they're going to say, I went to Sadbury Intermediate School, and I hope I'm somewhere in earshot to say, yeah, I know, and that was my dad.
So neat.
Okay, so the next steps, we're going to have the Meet the Principal night on February 16th, and that will also serve as our informational night. So I'm looking forward to that event. And then the big task that I've been asked, after this night, we get to start hiring staff. So I will no longer be a staff of one. I'm so looking forward to that. And I'll just tell you guys that I'm so excited, and it's an honor and privilege to be principal of this school. And I'm so excited for you guys to see the school named after your dad. He's a pillar of this community, and he really deserved it. Thank you guys for coming out.
I have a question. Were you in that picture? Yes. Who was were you on the left or the right? He
was holding her.
Oh, that is just, that picture, yeah, that needs to go in school somewhere. Oh, that is.
Do you have anything that
I'd like to say thank you to the superintendent, the board, the community. It's a pleasure and it's an honor. And I want to say thank you so very much, because Daddy was a deserving person for this school. And like I said before, I hope his spirit will stay in the hallways of that school. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Do y'all have any other questions before I have a little presentation?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, this has truly been an adventure of starting up and working alongside Dr. Watkins, Mr. Neal. They have just really been there to support us with providing pictures. It has been a wonderful experience. And I've had the pleasure of also working beside Mr. Scott. And I don't think you guys could have selected a better person to and lead this school. And he has such a vision, and I know your father would be very proud. And I have to pull him back every now and then. Whoa, you know. But I'd rather do that than have to push him. And so while we appreciate you tonight, we really celebrate Mr. Scott Sadbury. And last Thursday, Mr. Scott had another addition to his family, a baby. And so will you please open this gift for us? Ms. Carabine had this great idea.
Oh my gosh.
That's for the.
Oh my gosh, this is.
A onesie.
Oh my
That's for your 2-year-old.
Look at that.
Okay, so.
Future Sadbury Intermediate.
2-year-old. For the baby.
The T-shirts for the big brother and the onesies for the baby.
Oh, that is so cute.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for all that you do.
I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you.
So, Mr. Scott, we need a picture of you in front of that school with those babies on your lap.
Yes.
Will do.
Thank you.
I just want to add, I couldn't ask for a better team. Ms. Carabine, Ms. Goodman. There's one person who always hides behind the scenes, but I'm calling her out now, Dr. Ybarra. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be part of your team.
Thank you. We're so excited. Thank you to the Sadbury family for being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a night of celebration. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for debuting those new shirts with the logos. Those are fancy.
Oh, we have them?
We got some too.
Oh.
Those will be in our goodies. I think it's in your swag bag. It's in our
how-
goodie bag. Yay.
Great.
Can't wait for that.
Leo gets a onesie.
Better be a big onesie. More like
All
a
right.
tinsy.
Okay, well, that's the fun stuff. The board will now recess the regular meeting to reconvene the public hearing. The time is now 6:15. We will now have the presentation of the district's annual report we
Dr.
look
Harmon.
forward to every year.
I don't know if we
Oh,
have time.
I'm sorry. It does. 6:45. I don't know if it's dyslexic or what, but, or tired, yes. The report we look so forward to every year.
Yes.
The Texas Academic Performance Report, otherwise known as the TAPER. Take it away, Dr. Eberhard.
Thank you, Dr. Harlan. And Dr. Morris actually texted me right before I came to the podium and said, we seriously have to follow that? And I said, yes, we have to follow all of the wonderful that just happened. But we actually have some wonderful as well in our back pocket to share with you this evening. The annual report is required by Board Policy AB Legal. It is something that is required by statute that happens annually, and it's a recap of the prior year and some other latent data from years past. So everything that we're talking about this evening all played into the accountability rating that we've already disclosed from August that we've already been discussing, and the board's already set board goals as a result of. So everything moving forward, this is about last year and years prior. Again, celebrating that increase, but knowing that everything that you see in the report tonight is the conclusion of that accountability system and can't really move forward in comparisons in the coming year. And we talked about this at the board's Team of 8 training, but you're going to see changes to the structure of the assessment and the question types. All sorts of different question types will be available to kiddos this year, 25% of the test. Content will be changing, and that writing will now be embedded into grades 3 through 8 on that reading English language arts assessment. It'll be combined into one assessment now. And you'll see changes in the elements and indicators, the cuts, points, the scale scores, and in turn, the entire methodology of that accountability system. So everything from this evening is the conclusion of that accountability system and matrix. So the annual report itself, Jill, what is it, 500 pages or more? About that. So we're going to give you the high-level overview this evening rather than a line-by-line overview. But you can see the different areas that are required by the law to be in that report. And Jill will explain later on how you can gain access to that report through a number of different opportunities. One of the ways that we like to look at our data is comparing how we do to the state of Texas, as well as other districts that serve similar populations. So we know where can we grow and where can we learn from other districts who serve similar students, and then also looking across the state. So Dr. Morris, if you'd please explain the comparable group methodology. Sorry, Jill.
That's okay.
You might have to go back again.
We're good. So as in years past, we have looked for districts that are similar to us to help us make our comparison, because we know we don't look exactly like the state. So what you see before you are the 5 districts that were most similar to Bryan ISD based on their total enrollment, their low income status, their English learners, and then their mobility rates. So I'm going to show you just a few slides about that, but anytime in the presentation you see comparable groups, it is the average of these 5 districts that we're comparing ourselves to. So looking at the ethnic breakdown at the top, you can see the pie chart shows the state, and then you see the comparable district and Bryan ISD. And you can see that the 2 charts for the comparable district and Bryan ISD look very similar and both a little different than the state. And that's just our ethnic makeup from the last school year. Similarly on this, and just to kind of make the key maybe a little bit easier, anytime you see kind of that lightish blue-gray color, that is going to be the state. The darker blue is our comparable district group, and then the orange is Bryan ISD, just to kind of make that stand out. So you can see that for the most part at these economically disadvantaged, emergent, bilingual, at-risk, and mobile groups, we are similar to our comparable group and usually above the state in those categories. And just, we know that that mobility is very important, and we also know that the state defines mobile a little bit different than we do. For the state, mobile is they were in our district less than 83% of the school year. It does not take into account a student who may have been at 4 or 5 elementary schools because they've moved, or someone who leaves our district and then comes back but is with us 83%. And we know mobility has a huge impact on learning. So our true mobility rate is probably even higher than that.
What is emergent bilingual? Is it just
That's the new term for our English language learners.
Okay.
It was limited English proficient, then it was English learners, English language, and now it's emergent bilingual.
Okay, so it's primarily.
It's our students who are learning English.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
All right, so this one I just kind of put in there to show you. In 2021, this is just our STAR participation rate. You can see the state was down below 90%, but Bryan ISD, through a lot of hard work, tested 96% of our students. And you can see that last year in 2022, we're about back to normal as far as we're matching the state, and we're testing almost all of our students. So that was a very positive result. This chart may take a little bit of explaining. This is a comparison we did looking at 2019 results to 2022. So looking at that learning gap. And so what you see is the state and Bryan ISD. So in reading, we're the same as the state, but the state and Bryan ISD both lost a percentage point in their students that were scoring approaches grade level in reading when comparing 2019 to 2022. In math, you can see that the state is in 2022 10 percentage points below where they were in 2019, while Bryan ISD is 9 percentage points below. Both the state and Bryan ISD are 5 percentage points below in science, and then in social studies, the state was 6 points below, while Bryan ISD was 9 points below. So that just shows that we've made some progress, but there's still a lot of that learning loss in those gaps that we need to close for our students.
Was the data for the comparables not available for this? Or?
I don't know why it's not on the graph. I have it. I can add it to the PowerPoint, and I don't know why it's not there. I'll have to go back and look. I apologize for that. So the next 3 slides I'm going to show you are just old data that you've already seen about our percent of students at approaches, meets, and master's grade level for the 4 subject areas. So you can see, and you'll see this trend on all the slides. We are below the state, but we're very close to our comparable district in reading, math, science, and social studies. This is approaches grade level. You'll see the same exact pattern for meets grade level. And then for master's grade level, it's the same exact pattern. So we're comparable to our comparable group, but below the state.
When choosing the comparable group, was it, I know you showed us the first parameters, the size and all that. Were some excluded, or did we just, we don't want the numbers, I don't want the numbers skewed. I'm just wondering, how are those particular ones?
So we used Forecast 5, which was part of the 5 lab suite, to help us narrow that down. I do believe there was one that we excluded because they were, their ethnic makeup was just too far off. They were over 80% a single, I think they were 80% Hispanic, and that just did not mesh with, so they got kicked out.
So we got good numbers, I guess
Yes.
that's what I'm making. Thank you.
So once again, just kind of continuing with the data sets that you're going to see on that tape report, those students who completed an advanced course or a dual credit course, you can see COVID certainly has had an impact on this for the state as well as the comparable group and for Bryan ISD. But we are pleased to see new progress in that this year. Again, this is latent data, this is last year data, but trying to get some, recapture some of those students into those courses during the last COVID year that we had. We didn't see as many students as successful. We also saw some different practices at some of our partnerships with Blend moving to the 8 and 5 week courses that can cause a little bit of a concern for our students to participate. But we're starting to see some of that normalize now and more students moving into those courses once again. Longitudinal cohorts, this is about graduation rates. We always do a little bit of an explanation here. There's a 4-year and there's a 5-year, and essentially what it means is if all of us are a cohort, then all of us entered 9th grade in the same school year together, and that's our cohort. And then we progress through our academic career and our credits and our graduation is pending. How many of us cross the stage in that 4-year time frame from the time that we entered 9th grade all together to the time that we go across that stage at graduation. This is one that the district has been working on for a number of years, and the board will recall that previously, many years ago, we were at an 85% graduation rate for the 4-year cohort, and we have brought it up to a 91% that you see here. And then, of course, the 5 year is always going to be higher because we continue to work with students through MC Harris and through other means to help them obtain graduation. But it also doesn't stop there. There's data that's not going to ever be reflected on a 4-year or a 5-year cohort because we have students that actually come back from years prior before we had certain things like the individualized graduation committees. We had a graduate from had a student from 2011 fly in, take the biology EOC this past December, pass it, and is now a graduate. That's not going to show up in any of our data sets, but our staff and our students come back to us, and our staff works with them to do whatever we can to help them meet that goal. So thankful for the staff, certainly in Jill's department, and for the campus as well. Connected to this is the type of graduation plan that a student is on. You'll see that this is percent of students with advanced diplomas. That means it's the foundation plan plus an endorsement. The state moved to endorsements for graduation plans several years back, and our goal is that every student graduate with an endorsement. They have some pathway that they're interested in, they did additional coursework in. You can see that in this situation, we are very, very close to the state. Previously, we've been ahead of the state. We were just 1% off from there, and we are ahead of the comparable group in ensuring that students get more than just the basic graduation plan, but they're on an advanced diploma program, and whether it be endorsement or otherwise. We try to make sure that we're moving them forward in a pathway that gets them to a career pathway beyond just graduation. Another part of the TAPER report, and also of the annual report rather, is the participation in post-secondary institutions. And so this particular area works with the Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board to look at how many students go on to college in that first year following graduation. During the COVID years, and this is 2-year-old data, this is longer data, and it's during COVID, you'll see that there was quite an impact across the state on students going into their college immediately following graduation. Coupled with this, we also look at, for those students who do go on to college, how do they do? Do they need remediation? Are they able to continue in that first year? Typically, this data is available at this time when we do the annual report. However, this year it has not been released yet. And so I'm still showing you 2019 data because we haven't gotten the new data yet. But Bryan ISD graduates are able to go into that first year of college without remediation at a higher rate than the state. You can see here it was 80% of our students who went on were able to do that successfully in that first year. We're anxious to see the coming data sets, and as soon as we have them, we will pass them along to the Board of Trustees. It's also important to note, and Jill would probably jump in here if she weren't so polite to me. It's also important to know that this is only Texas public higher education institutions. If they went to a private Texas university or college, they're not in this data set. If they went out of state to a college or university, they are also not in this data set. So there are some limitations to what the state's able to collect in terms of data in this particular area. See, I saved it. Yes, ma'am.
So also in the annual report, besides the academic data, there's some other things that we need to include. I'm not going to belabor this because I know you've already heard the financial reports, but we have to include our financial reports. We also include our district accreditation status. So those first 2 bullets are just the possible statuses and what goes into that. But the third bullet is probably the most important for the purposes of this conversation, that the commissioner, due to the impact of COVID, has decided that he will not issue accreditation statuses until the 22-23 school year. So this time next year, when I stand up here and do this fund report, I will have an accredited status to report to you. But right now, no one in the state has got an accreditation status. We also have to include each campus's campus improvement plan. Those were approved by the board back in September, but those will all be included in this report. One of the reasons the document becomes over 500 pages long, because we have all these different reports to include. Finally, all of this will be combined into one giant PDF. We are currently working on it. We're waiting on just a little bit of that data before we can get it finalized. And then we will post it on the district's website as required. We will also make sure that each campus has a digital copy. We choose not to print it unless someone requests it, because we don't want to, waste our resources on that. But community members, our parents can request a copy, and we will be glad to provide that to them. So that concludes the annual report.
Any questions about the taper? Okay.
Thanks for all the work.
All right.
See, we don't clap for them. We should clap for them.
Clap for taper. So this is a public hearing. Are there any further questions? It is a public hearing, so anyone from the public who's here can also ask questions if you have questions. Going once, going twice. Let the record show that the public hearing adjourned at 7 p.m. That one's hard for me to mess up. All right. The board will now reconvene the regular meeting. The time is now 7 p.m. All right. And we will start first with our consent agenda. Are there any items that any member would wish to discuss or remove? If there are not any, I will certainly entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move approval of all the items listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Ms. Benford and second by Mr. McCall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, consent agenda is approved. All right, we will will now move to items for discussion and action for our regular agenda. First, from Business Services, consider approval of the ranking for design build firms for 2022 Bond District-wide MEP project.
Thanks for having this agenda item tonight, but this is the district-wide MEP and HVAC systems project as part of the 2020 bond. And it was, this project does consist of the priority 1 and 2 items for MEP from the facility assessment. So it's MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Design build was selected as the procurement process or procurement method for this project, and we are utilizing a 2-step process with it. With the first step being a request for qualifications, and the second step will be a request for proposals. So the first step, of course, is the request for qualifications, or the RFQ, and those have been scored by our evaluation committee. We received those RFQs right before we went on break in December, and then we have scored those, and scoring for this first step has a maximum of 75 points allotted to it, and then the second step is the RFP, the request for proposals, and that evaluates the cost methodology, which is for a score up to 25 points to get to the grand total of 100, which that will be coming, the second step will be coming in February for approval. But the costing methodology includes policies on subcontractor markup, definition and range of costs for general conditions, the retainage policies, contingency policies, and staffing for administrative duties. And through this, our outside legal counsel of Walsh Gallegos has been leading us through the procurement process for the design build and guiding us on the documentation, the scoring, making sure we meet all the requirements and everything, because this is not a common procurement that we use all the time, like competitive seal proposal. But tonight I'm asking for the approval of the rankings that were provided to y'all in the backup information that shows y'all the scores and the rankings of the 3 firms that did submit for the RFQ for the design build of this project.
Are there any questions?
Just in a general question on the whole process, because once upon a time, we would have a project and we'd ask people, we'd bid it, get bids, and we'd go with whoever we thought could provide the quality and a good price. This seems certainly more complicated, and I'm just trying to make sure that, in your opinion, we're still gonna have the ability to look at what something's gonna cost and question it, and possibly not even accept what they're saying they're gonna do it for, or how does it work as far as an individual project goes?
Yes, once it's kind of like it's kind of like CMAR, the construction manager at risk that we've used for Intermediate 3 and for the Halliburton project with the design build firm will go in, and once they design the project, and we will get costs associated with it during that process. So in the beginning, we select, it's based off of basically their markups and their percentages, and that's how we evaluate them along the same lines as construction manager. But we don't really know the full cost yet for the project because it's not the CSP method.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm just looking for some reassurance that there's a history here, that this is going to give us a good price, high quality, good price, as opposed to maybe uncertainty. I don't want to box us in where, okay, we've chosen this firm, and so whatever they come up with is basically what we pay. I hope it's not that simplistic.
No, it'll be a competitive price. It's not going to be competitively bid on that, but it will be a competitive price, and we have not gone into the contract or anything yet, so we can make changes in that to give us an out as well if we aren't comfortable with the price and the cost.
But along Mr. Stasny's question, so are they the only ones that will submit so we've approved them, they have the best score, are they the only ones that will give us an actual bid? Because how do you know if it's competitive if you're only getting one bid in? Is that kind of one?
Well, that's kind of where
based on this, yes, it will be one firm giving us one total price.
And that just seems to stifle any kind of competition, so that's.
So remind us why we chose this method.
This method was selected because of the complexity of the project, with it being practically every campus, every building within Bryan ISD is being touched by this. It is very difficult to be able to design all the intricacies of these and then have that competitively bid through a general contractor, and then you'll have, of course, all the GC markups and stuff and this project is going to be 100% after hours, nights, and weekends because of campuses having students and having everything going on. It will be 100% after hours. So with design build, that entity can design and they will serve as general contractor all at the same time. And it's a kind of like a not to exceed type cost. So whatever price they give us, a price of $5 million, it won't go over $5 million. There's no change orders or anything with that. It's $5 million, and if they miss something, there's no fingers to point at anyone else because they did the design. And then on top of that, we have which was approved, I believe in November, October, we have the third-party engineer, the independent engineer that oversees as well, and kind of make sure their design will work. They were approved, so they will be overseeing the project also with us and guiding us on cost and pricing and
Paul,
stuff.
can you back up just a little bit more? So MEP stands for,
Mechanical, electrical, plumbing.
and you said touching all campuses.
Yeah, so we will have HVAC work. This project is probably 90% HVAC. It has little electrical and a little plumbing. Most of it is HVAC. So with that, these projects can't really be done during the school day.
So these were
Not
the
enough
maintenance
time.
projects approved in the 2022 bond related to HVAC and those kind of things across all of our campuses?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to remind them, you mentioned priority 1 and 2, that there's a lifespan that defines what is a priority 1 and 2?
So priority 1 in our facility assessment is items that need to be addressed within 0 to 2 years, and then priority 2s are 2 to 5 years. So we are at that roughly, we're in that 2-year range since the facility assessment was last updated, and those items were prioritized by campus.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused because the description that's, the annotation that's on the agenda says the next step of the procurement process will evaluate the pricing of each of the entities to ultimately select an entity to design and construct the project. And what I heard you say was the last 25% or 25 points in the matrix was based on the costing.
Yes, sir.
And so that kind of, the wording there and the phrasing indicates that there would be a bid from all 3 participants bidding for that 25 points.
Well, there's not an actual proposal or bid because it's not designed yet.
Well, there's something with pricing. There's something, because the procurement process will evaluate the pricing of each of the entities. So where's the pricing coming from?
It's their markups and their policies for the general conditions.
But there would be, but we would evaluate all 3.
We will. We have not.
We have not. So I think that
we can't go
kind of is counter than what you said a few minutes ago. I think that was causing some of the confusion.
So we can't go to the second step until the rankings of the first step of, we scored them based solely off their qualifications of, are they, let's see, I can pull it up. So.
Right. I got that, but I think what I understood, I won't say what I understood in your presentation 5 minutes ago was that we were just going to get one pricing entity, the lead,
Yeah, that's what I understood.
The number 1 ranked entity would be the only one to submit pricing. And I think what I'm actually reading is that all 3 will submit some type of pricing for evaluation.
They will submit their markups. Let's say like firm A it's based on these different things. Their markups come out to like 10%.
So,
Burn B may be around 8%.
So I get it, but, so if number one on the ranking submits a 500% markup, and number two submits a 25% markup,
Yeah.
then there's still room to come back and go, wait a minute, we're gonna go with, we're gonna consider, there
Then
is
we
a
would go with Burn
cost
2, yes.
element
Okay,
in that.
thank you,
I think
Mark.
that's.
Yes.
It seemed like it was, we're picking this
Yes.
one and whatever price. they
So
give us.
what we're approving is the 75 points
Yep.
out of 100.
Just the
We're
rankings.
approving the ranking of these entities tonight.
That's it. You're just
Okay.
approving them going
Makes sense?
1, 2, and 3.
I was confused too.
And then this week, we'll release the second step for these firms to respond to the second step.
Okay.
And then we will
And that'll be the
evaluate it.
25 points.
Right,
So
so
it's-
it's still competitive at this point, because these
Yeah.
three people
Oh,
still have to
100%.
put in their pricing. So
Yes.
your competitive edge is still in play.
Gotcha.
And then with that third party reviewing all of this, if something comes out, you know,
Yeah.
if you have some kind of big outlier, they're going to weigh in and
But
guide
the
us.
total cost of the project, no, we don't know that number.
Okay,
We know their
but we will get 3
markups.
bids on it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's really.
Sorry.
So once we end up with one after the second round, we'll end up with one, right?
Yes.
Then that's the part that, again, I don't want to belabor this too much, but how do we watch it? Are they going to go out and get subs? And it almost sounds like they're going to give us a price before they even bid it out to subs.
No, there'll be an amendment to that contract with the final price.
Okay.
Kind of like in the CMAR, in the construction manager, where like when Dramala was hired for intermediate and Halliburton, we came and approved them as the construction manager at risk. And then we went through design and went through schematic and design development. And then we came back and did a GMP, guaranteed maximum price.
Okay.
Kind of like the same kind of methodology and same theory behind it for design build.
Okay.
Except in construction manager, they don't design it.
So again, this format, this way of doing it has a history of creating value is what
Yes.
we're hoping for. Is
So
that it-
I would not choose this method for like a lot of projects. My preference is on these type of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing type projects.
Right.
Where there are entities which I know one of them that submitted, they did Legends Event Center as a design build project. So I know there are other, some will use it as construction type. My preference is on these type of projects where design build fits in the best, because they are designing it and building it themselves, and there's a lot of potential for missed items in a traditional CSP, competitive sale proposal, with all those intricacies of controls and the HVAC equipment and everything. It allows for more flexibility in the design while we're going through the project.
And Paul, you mentioned that our
And no change
attorneys have been involved from the
Oh,
beginning.
yes, and with Walsh Gallegos has been in this since the very beginning of this project.
So again, what we're approving tonight is the ranking of the 3.
Yes. Yep.
Not locking into anybody.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Thanks.
Nope,
Well,
just the
I figured
rankings of the
that part.
3.
I'm still worried about the money part down the road, but yeah.
Is there a motion?
I move approval of the committee ranking of design build firms for 2020 bond district-wide MEP project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McCall and seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, you got through that, Paul,
Thanks.
thanks. It's confusing for us.
We should probably give him a round of.
Yay!
But Paul, not 6-0.
I don't know, he gets more than almost.
All right, and next, under business services, we have consider approval of the annual financial report for Bryan ISD for the year August 31, 2022.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Texas Education Code, Section 44 requires all independent school districts to have their fiscal accounts audited annually by a certified or public accountant licensed by the Texas State Board of Public Accountancy. The independent audit must be at least the minimum requirements and be in the format that is prescribed by the State Board of Education. A copy of the annual report is approved. Once approved by the Board of Trustees, will be filed with the agency for review. We've just completed our audit for the August 31, 2022 fiscal year financial records, which you have a copy of that on your at your chair. We have Mr. Matt Rogers here as a senior manager for the firm of Weaver and Tidwell, who did the audit. He's going to give us a high-level overview, and he'll answer any questions on that.
Hello, good evening. As mentioned, my name is Matt Rogers. I'm with Weaver out of our Conroe office. I've been with the firm I've been in public accounting for over 10 years. I've been with Weaver for about 6 or 7, and been working with Bryan ISD for the last, I believe, 2 years now. So really a privilege to work with the great staff you all have here at Bryan ISD. What you have in front of you, or should have in front of you, are 2 documents. One is the bound printed version of the annual financial report, which has our auditor letters in them. The other is a separate stapled document towards the back of that report. These are what were called our required auditor communications to the governing body. But rather than going over this information in as much detail as I did during the Finance Committee meeting, I prepared a presentation today to hopefully kind of summarize it. So just go over an overview of the audit process, and then go over the audit results and our required communications. Then just a few financial highlights, some upcoming changes, and GASB and financial reporting, and then open up for any questions. But if you have any questions between now and the end, just feel free to let me know. So our audit process, we do some initial planning after we receive the engagement letter, and go into what's called our interim field work, which we typically do during the summer. We came in June this year. We're usually on site just a few days, or some of us may be remote. What we're doing then at that time is kind of gauging any changes in internal controls with the district, any change in operations, any significant transactions or unusual transactions that we need to take a look at. And we do some testing then to kind of prepare ourselves for what we call year-end field work. And so we came in November this year, a little later than normal, but we felt that it was beneficial to kind of allow some more time for the financial statement close process. We do a lot of spend a lot more time on our year-end field work. We test a lot of balances that exist at the end of the fiscal year. We do a lot of analytics. We do a lot of detailed testing on revenue, expenditures, and then eventually come to our conclusions. So on this slide, this is just a summary of the standards that we're performing our audit under. So we perform our audit in accordance with what's called generally accepted auditing standards, and also generally accepted government auditing standards, or GAGAS. And the GAGAS is a little bit it's a little bit higher expectation than generally accepted auditing standards, and so there's some additional things that we do under government auditing standards. We also do what's called a single audit, because the district expends more than $750,000 a year in federal awards. You're also required to obtain what's called a single audit, and that's performed in conjunction with the financial statement audit. We also do some compliance testing, and so under GAGAS, we do compliance testing for certain provisions of law, regulation, and contracts and agreements that we consider significant to the financial statements, and as noted here, a lot of that has to do with making sure that investments comply with Public Funds Investment Act, other TEA compliance requirements that they list in their FASRAC, and then also some other compliance testing, such as bid or procurement testing. And so our audit is based on risk. We don't look at every transaction. That would be too time consuming. So we have to gauge risk, and we have to focus our audit on certain areas. And so this is just a list of our sample of risk: management over audit controls, state foundation program revenue, and related estimates associated with that, federal and state grants, and how those revenues are recognized. We do specific testing over accounts payable and disbursements throughout the year, payroll accruals, and then also any construction in progress if you have significant bond proceeds or have significant construction. We also test internal controls over financial reporting. We do not provide an opinion on the effectiveness of those controls, but we do test those controls in order to evaluate if there's any more risk in any one particular area. And then we also test compliance with major program requirements. That's in relation to these single audits. So this slide is actually information that's pulled from the AFR document towards the back. We call this the Schedule of Findings and Question Costs. It's just a brief summary of our auditor's results, and if you had any findings, they would be listed here. And so for the financial statement audit, we issued an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is the highest level of assurance you can receive in a financial statement audit. Internal control over financial reporting. If we had identified any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, they would be listed here. We have none to report this year. We also have no material noncompliance to report either. For the single audit or audit of the federal awards, we also would report any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies over major programs. If we had identified any, we have not identified any such weaknesses in the current year. Compliance over major programs. Our opinion on the compliance over major programs is unmodified. Again, that's the highest level of assurance you can receive in a compliance audit. And then Bryan ISD qualified as a low-risk auditee. This is simply how the federal government classifies how much we need to test. And so being a low-risk auditee essentially means, among other criteria, that you haven't had a material weakness in the past 2 years. And so the two major programs that we tested in the compliance audit this year, Title I, and then also what's known as ESSER, or the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funding. That funding is still in process, and I believe will not fully be expended until after fiscal year 24. As part of our audit, we also are required to communicate the status of any prior year findings, and as part of our audit, we follow up on these findings to determine if it's recurring and or if it's been resolved. There was one significant deficiency in the previous fiscal year related to cash reconciliations and the timing of those reconciliations, and this finding has been resolved as of the current year. This slide just identifies some of the significant risks that we identified during our planning phase of the audit. And so you'll see listed here just some common risks that we see among not just financial statements in general, but local governments in general. Our management overhead controls, improper revenue recognition related to state aid and also grants, improper or unauthorized expenditures, mainly just targeting to see if there's any, authorizations that should not have been performed. And on the compliance audit, we also, again, identify management override controls. And again, just to clarify, this is part of our due diligence. We do this to focus our efforts in certain areas, and we have not identified any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in relation to these risks. There was one new accounting standard that was implemented this year. GASB, or the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, are the accounting standards that the district is required to follow in terms of financial reporting. GASB 87 is in regard to leases. Under previous guidance, you had to evaluate whether a lease contract was going to be capitalized or not capitalized. Under the new lease standard, in short, you have to capitalize any lease or any contract that's identified as a lease. And so, looking at the standard this year, we determined that there was actually no impact to the financial statements in result of adopting this standard. Significant accounting estimates. The financial statements incorporate significant accounting estimates, and which include allowance for uncollectible property taxes, the foundation foundation school program state aid revenue. That one is a pretty sensitive estimate because of the way that TEA kind of revises this information throughout the year, even after the fiscal year. Depreciation expense, so estimating useful lives of depreciable assets, and then estimates that are based on third-party actuaries include the IBNR, incurred but not reported claims for health and workers' comp, since the district is self-funded, and also the district's proportionate share of its net pension and OPEB liability because it participates in TRS. Some other items that we're required to communicate. There were no transactions entered into by the district that lacked authoritative consensus. The financial statements were neutral, consistent, clear. If we had identified any uncorrected misstatements that were over what we call our trivial or de minimis threshold, we would have to report them to you. We have no such misstatements to report to you. And if there were any material misstatements that were corrected, we would also have to report that to you, and we have no such misstatements to report this year. We did not have any significant difficulties or disagreements with management during the course of our audits. Our audit team complied with ethical requirements regarding independence. The last few there are just indicating that we do some non-attest services involving compilation of the financial statements. However, those services are not subject to audit, and the responsibility relies wholly with the district. Some financial highlights. So this information comes directly from the AFR, what's called the governmental fund financial statements. If you wanted to look at it in this bound report, it would be page 26 and 27. The governmental fund financial statements are what's called a modified accrual basis. So you don't report capital assets on the balance sheet. You don't report long-term liabilities on the balance sheet. You report those as expenditures when incurred. This slide is showing you the comparison of revenues by source. You see the four categories here, or the four funds listed here. The general fund is the fund of the district that accumulates all resources not required to be accounted for in another fund. Debt service fund is the fund that accumulates resources that are restricted for debt service payments. Capital projects fund is restricted for capital acquisitions. Those represent your bond proceeds. And then the non-major governmental funds, that comprises all of your state and federal grants, and also campus activity funds. And so you'll see this is really just kind of a high-level view of this, but in the general fund, you'll see local and intermediate sources is just a hair north of $92 million. That's primarily your property tax revenue, your M&O rate, your property tax revenue in the general fund. And then you have state program revenues of a little less than $65 million. That's primarily your state aid, foundation, and available school funding. And then also about $3.6 million of federal program revenues. In the debt service fund, it's primarily all local property tax revenues. And the capital projects fund has a negligible $500,000 of interest income. And then non-major funds, you can see that primarily represents federal program revenues, so your federal grants. This is just a comparison year over year of the fund level revenue sources. You can just see, just glancing at this, the funding by type has been fairly consistent, so 53.75% around fiscal year 21 to 52.82% in fiscal year 22 is your local intermediate sources. Your state and federal are pretty comparable. So this slide is a comparison of expenditures by function. Again, separated by the major and then non-major governmental funds. And you'll see here that general fund is primarily instructional expenditures. Debt service fund is all principal and interest expenditures. The capital projects fund is going to be your facilities acquisition and construction expenditures. And the non-major funds kind of varies depending on the program. A comparison year over year of the expenditures by function. Again, you'll see it's pretty consistent. The one kind of outlier there is the facilities acquisition and construction. That's because you expended more bond proceeds in the current year versus fiscal year 21. So that's showing that you have a lot more construction activity going on. This slide here is just a high-level overview of the budget to actual. In the financial statements, towards what we call the RSI, or the required supplementary information, you'll see the budget, original final budget in Exhibit G1, which was adopted by the board, and then compared to actual expenditures that were in this Exhibit C2 that we just briefly went over. And then you'll see the differences, the positive, negative budget variances. And so this is just showing you the final budget with regard to total revenues was about $155 million, and actual revenues about $160 million. Fluctuation there is likely due to just estimates of state aid, which again is pretty significant. And for most districts, it's very difficult to get close to that number because you don't actually get your final until about 2 months after year end.
That's a pretty graph, but if you just glance at it, it looks like our revenue almost tripled from what we thought it was going to be, and of course it didn't because you started at 152 million.
It doesn't show the zero.
And on the expenditure side, you see that figure is a lot closer, and so total expenditures on the final budget, $160 million, $708,000. Actual expenditures, $161,420,000. And then this slide here is just giving you a kind of a bird's eye view of fund balance of the general fund year over year. And so you see it's classified by type. Unassigned is the largest component of fund balance for the general funds. Let me go back to my note here. And so you can see that not very much change in the components of fund balance, but unassigned fund balance, the typical good metric to look at is your unassigned fund balance as a percentage of current year expenditures, and that percentage is about 25%, so about 3 months of fund balance and unassigned, which is pretty typical, or a target range for most districts is between 2 to 6. Some upcoming changes this next fiscal year 23, the district will be required to adopt GASB 96. This one's a little more cumbersome because it involves capitalizing and recording a long-term liability associated with subscription agreements. So we'll see how this one plays out, but currently we do not know what the impact of that will be. And then also GASB 101, compensated absences. This again will involve a little bit more work on the part of the district to kind of determine the dollar amount of your accumulated leave balances and what that would look like on a government-wide level. So shouldn't affect your governmental fund balances. I just want to appreciate the board for letting me come here tonight, and also want to express appreciation to the staff at Bryan ISD. They've been very great to work with. It's a lot of work to put all this information. It's over 100 pages that has to be submitted every year. And so appreciate all the effort that went into it.
I do have one question. The separate letter that's in the back, the Finance Committee had a chance to go over that or hear about it, and some of the wording on page 2 was pretty scary, and I think it's been maybe clarified a little bit, but I think it still deserves a little explanation to whoever might be reading this about the significant risk identified during planning. I'll jump down to near the bottom of that, and it says, based on the test work performed in these areas, no material misstatements or significant deficiencies or material weaknesses or in internal controls were found. So that's about the first place you find something that sounds reassuring. But just to make sure I understand it, and I think other people might also be wondering what this means, is that due to the nature of what we do, there's going to be these risks. And as I understood the other gentleman when we were in the Finance Committee meeting, these risks are very difficult to completely eliminate. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement. When you look at any audit firm that comes in, they're going to look at management override controls and improper revenue recognition. Actually, we're required to assume that those exist in any financial statement audit. So what we do is we take those risks and we go, okay, what could happen? How do we target our testing in a way that we make sure that there are no material misstatements resulting from what could happen? Mm-hmm. And so it helps us just kind of gauge where we're going to test, how we're going to test. And so this is essentially that.
Is it even possible, we just need to know, is it possible for us to reduce to a point where these are no longer risk, or is that really practical in a school district to do that?
Well, it's really impractical in any organization to eliminate risk completely.
Well,
and so
that's
so
kind of
yeah.
the point, because it's one thing to point it out that sounds like red flags, and then another thing to say, well, this is something that is kind of hard to eliminate. It's there, and you need to know about it, and obviously we need to be watchdogs. But I guess what I'm trying to hear from you is that if it is possible to do something to eliminate these risks, then of course we should move in that direction if we can, and if it's economically feasible to do that. And we've always heard about, and when we go to sessions, is internal auditors and that sort of thing. I have no idea whether that's something we should ever go down that road or not. But I guess, again, I don't want anybody to be alarmed when they read this, because when you read the first part, it sounds very scary. It really does. And it sounds like, oh my gosh, they're wide open to misappropriation of cash through improper authorized expenditures. And I think you are saying, well, yeah, there's a risk of that, but you didn't really find anything that says that's happening. It's just that the risk is there. But that still begs the question, are we failing to do something to minimize or eliminate that risk?
I think the way that I read this and the way that I understood it from the Finance Committee is this is their action plan. We're looking for this. We're going to tell you ahead of time, this is what we're looking for, right? So we're posting, we're not going to go through the books 100% down to the cent. But we're going to go, our audit is focused on these areas. And they have to tell you that ahead of time, and they have to state that in the report that this is what they looked for. But then that next paragraph is saying, we looked all over the place for these. We didn't find any. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to report on these three specific areas. So it's not a question of minimize. I mean, obviously, yes, we want to minimize, but they didn't find anything to minimize because there was nothing found.
Well, I don't know. I was sort of hearing or reading this to mean that the risk is there, and But that doesn't mean there's evidence of that it actually happened, but the risk is real and it's there. Which way is it? I mean, one of us.
There's always a risk.
Somebody's close
There's
to
always a
somebody.
risk, or else they wouldn't
Well,
look at it.
yeah, I guess to answer it, it's really about, it's, the risk is always there. It's inherent in any financial statement audit. And there's a little bit of flexibility amongst, identifying other additional risks in terms of gauging your audit plan. But, when you just think about management over audit controls, you're not going to see an audit that does not have management over audit controls as a risk. I've been doing this 10 years. I have not had a single one that did not have that.
That's
So,
kind of my point.
and so it's really just stating overtly that we are considering this, and we know that this is a possibility in any audit, so how are we looking at that? And which audit standards require us to kind of evaluate it in that manner so that we have a true risk-based approach. We're not just going in blind and spending our time and effort on things that may be insignificant. We want to spend our time and effort on things that we think could have a significant financial impact to the users of the financial statements.
Because my understanding is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is that that you're not in any position to guarantee us that none of these things happened in our district, because there's no way you can know that. Is that correct or not?
Well, I guess a better way to put it is we provide reasonable but not absolute assurance. So I guess to answer your question is yes, there's no way to guarantee 100%, but we do target any material misstatements associated with these risks.
Well, I'm really looking for reassurance. Believe me, I'm not looking for saying, hey, we're doing something wrong. I just I felt like this was obviously still in the letter. It would be nice if you could say, which I'm not sure it says that none of this happened in Bryan ISD. But again, I was, I guess, understanding this to mean that that's not your job, is to guarantee none of these things happen. You're there to say, look, we don't see anything where you misstated anything. We don't see anything where there's a material weakness. But we're not able to say, because we're not watching every single transaction and what everybody does in our district, you can't say nothing like this happened. It's up to us to try to deal and be aware of those risks and try to make sure that we're being careful.
Yes, and I do recall the conversation. We did update the language in the letter a little bit to kind of hopefully address that.
I mean, that last sentence, based on the test work performed.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, that was what was added to make it clear that there was no material weaknesses found by this audit.
But that doesn't, I don't think you'd have to put this in here at all if there was no still risk existing.
Well, let's be clear. In that financial meeting, they stated that this has always been done. They've always done this. It's just now that they've had to communicate it with us, and that's why it's in here like that. But they also put that statement in here, yes, this has to be communicated, however, nothing has been found.
Well, my only goal was to say that this is not unusual and that we are, as far as you can tell, doing our job correctly, and that no one should read this and be alarmed by it.
That's correct.
Yes. I think that's what we all want.
So Matt, this letter's, I mean, there were no findings.
Correct. Yeah.
This is boilerplate because we passed the audit. Congratulations, Kevin. Right? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I didn't mean to get into the weeds that much. It was certainly when we was first presented to us, it was, the way it was worded, it didn't seem, I don't think it had that last sentence in there, and it was like, wow, it almost sounds like you for sure doing something wrong.
We appreciate accountants. We do.
Well, I appreciate you.
Kind of like lawyers. No.
Yeah. That's how we can pick it apart. Well, what if?
All
We
right.
don't know to present paper reports.
Thank you. I move approval of the annual audit and financial report for the year ending August 31st, 2022 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Dr. Davis and seconded by Ms. Benford. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. We appreciate you being here today. And Kevin, of course, and team for doing all the due diligence to get through that over the last several months. All right, that moves us to the fun stuff. Up first for teaching and learning, we have consider approval of the 2023-2024 district instructional calendar.
First of all, thank you for letting me be here tonight. I want to say thank you for everything that you do as a school board. You are very much appreciated. And thank you for the opportunity to talk again on the instructional planning calendar. We're going to start again with the timeline. It's slightly updated from when you saw this back in November, but I felt like it was really important to show it again, to recognize the framework and the continual updates from the calendar committee and the time and the efforts they put into this. And then each time we got feedback from you as a board, from our district continuous improvement leadership team, our teacher advisory board, our parent advisory board, and finally DEIC. We try to include as many groups as possible to help us through this process. Again, we'll look at the calendars that were part of the survey. And I think it's really important to point out the things that they have the same and the things that they have different. Calendar A and B both have 170 student instructional days. They both have the 187 contract days for teachers. The start dates for these calendars are very similar. Calendar A, starts just slightly earlier than calendar B. Both calendars put us out by Memorial Day, which then allows us to have graduation when we traditionally have graduation. Kind of new this year is both calendars have these early release days. There's those little red triangles that are on there. They're part of both calendars. That allow us to have some professional development time and planning for teachers. And then when you think about it, calendar A is kind of spread out. Again, both have 170 school days for students, but calendar A slightly spreads it out, starts a little bit earlier. It adds in that week in October that is very similar to what we deal with right now with spring break. But a very similar one-day difference when we get to the end. When we talked about calendar A before and that time off, the discussions with the board talked a lot about those activities going on in October. And if we went to a calendar like this, how do we ensure that we can get the students to those activities? And after visiting with all of those different programs, it's like we have ample time to make plans for that. And you know, everyone forgets, we really kind of do that now. Football, band, drill, volleyball, they all start before school. Basketball is always in practice during Thanksgiving. Over Christmas break, that is when soccer really, really kicks up. And then when we move into the spring for spring break, track, baseball, softball, they all are going to practices and going to events during that time frame. And so yes, it's a larger number of folks during that time, but feel like with the time that we have right now, we would be able to work that out. Kind of move now into the survey, and I talked about this a little bit when we met last week. Numbers increased drastically. We had over 2,000 more people participate in the survey this year as compared to last year, and it was increases in all of the areas that we have folks designate, whether it's student, it's staff, it's parents, or it's community members. But we were up over 2,000 surveys completed. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the actual survey data. When the slide comes up, the blue is going to be option A, and the orange is option B. I know it's pretty small right there to see, so I added it in on the bottom. The first one being the students, which was a drastic difference. 70% of the students preferred option A to 30% at B as we go down. Staff, 65 and 35. When we get to parents and guardians, those numbers become closer together, those percentages, but still in each category, option A exceeded option B. I was really kind of shocked about the difference in the student. Like, that one just blew me away. As educators, we always talk about October, and it has 31 days. For us, it doesn't. It has like 100 days. Obviously, students kind of feel that way too. And so it was very much a huge, huge difference in that overall survey. So now I stand before you and say that after visiting, after seeing the results, brought back in the calendar committee, I brought back in DEIC, and they were all in agreement that we would like to move forward with calendar A. Before we do that, we do have a couple other things to talk about. Carol?
Good evening. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was the non-duty calendar days. And you guys may not realize and know this, but when Donna stands up here and talks about the calendar, she's talking about the instructional calendar, and that's that group of people that work on the campuses, principals, teachers, all that group of people. But we have 16 other work calendars that we have employees working, start dates, and 16 different start dates and end dates of groups of people. And we have one group of people, and they're the 226-day work calendar people, and that's the people you see in this room, the high school principals, people at the downtown office, some secretaries with the high school, and things like that. And so they work 226 days. And in the past, we get what is called non-duty days, and in the past, I've seen that number as large as 12, and this year, it's as low as 6. And it all fluctuates on how many days are holidays that we built into the calendar, the days we take off. And so, for example, that day we had at Halloween became one, it wasn't an option for me, it became one of my non-duty days. And so instead of having 7 days, I had a day off at Halloween. Does that make sense to you guys? And so, sorry, I just wanted to explain that this group of people that have that work 226, they've always wanted to have their days together, if possible, to take vacation in the summer. Because we don't get time off in the summer. We get the winter break or the Christmas break, spring break, Thanksgiving break as chunks of days, but that's it, except for our days we take off. And so we want our days chunked together so that we could get a cruise or a vacation at some point during the school year at our discretion. And so the non-duty days are in addition to the school holidays on which employees are expected to work. I'm just kind of telling you what our guidelines are. The number of non-duty days, it fluctuates, like I said. This year it's 6. Next, or in the past, it's been up to 12. These are unpaid days, and then the number of holidays on the instructional calendar affects the number of non-duty days. So that week that Donna has projected on calendar A in October, it's brown. I think that's the magic color. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. It's brown up there, and so brown days would be discretionary days for, say, for example, me. If I wanted to take a fall vacation, I could take those days, my non-duty days, that week of October, and really not miss what's going on in the schools, you know, because they're all out. But then I would still have my chunk of days. But I would have that discretion to take those days. Or I can work that week and save my non-duty days for a later time in the school year. And so I just wanted y'all to be aware, because we have a lot of employees, because this year we had so few, because we had so many off days in our school calendar this year. We had some people that weren't happy with just having those 6 days. And so it was just important that we talk about that in this moment of time, because we want our 226 employees to have flexibility in their work schedule. But we want to serve our teachers at the best that we can, and that's why we wanted to have that break up there in October for the campuses, because like Donna said, sometimes we thought October was 1,000 days.
Well, I noticed, if you go back one, Donna.
Yes, ma'am.
That Juneteenth is that way too, so that's one of the options.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
And additionally, I added in a slide, we also had lots of discussion when I was here before about childcare and how it affects when we're off during the school year. So after the survey results came in, I went and visited with Miss Watson and her team at the Boys and Girls Club. I also visited with Miss Rhodes from Alpha Best to kind of get some input, and could they take additional students, and what is the process for them. And so I had really great visits, and planning to set back up with them after tonight so we can move forward. The one thing that both of them said to me unprompted is they build their schedule around us. They wait till Bryan ISD votes and approves their instructional calendar, and then they make decisions on what their schedule looks like. They do take days off, but it's those standard federal days along with a few extra, a couple days at Thanksgiving and a couple days at Christmas. Talked about having early releases, and they said, of course, if kids get there at 12 o'clock, we will be ready for them. And then we talked about those additional days. Would you be open in October? Could you take people that aren't on your regular calendar? And they kind of talked through that. Boys and Girls Club even does out a flyer that they can hand out that explains everybody exactly what would take place in order to be an additional student that may not regularly or always attend Boys and Girls Club.
Don, I have a question that kind of goes back to Carol. Sorry, I just thought about it. But the coaches, activity directors, band, whoever that are meeting and have their students during that week break, we were talking, one of my concerns was actually getting the kids up here. Okay, since they're working, will these be discretionary days for them, and then they'll be able to take a different one? I mean,
Their stipend.
how will they?
They have stipends that compensates for their work off the regular calendar.
Okay, so there's nothing built in for attaboys for them other than they're loyal to their job?
Right.
Okay.
And they get a stipend.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah,
well,
stipend helps.
yeah. I remember
know
my
it's not
stipend
always
was like
significant,
25 cents an hour. I remember
You
when it
never,
all
ever
boiled down.
want to add the hours. No.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, I'm super thankful that so many people did the survey
Mm-hmm.
and gave us input so we can make decisions that benefit the most people. So I know it's the kind of thing that not everyone will be happy about, but we will know and we will deal. Yeah.
You know me, I'm always going to give you my opinion. We do these 1 year at a time. And so we've learned from, COVID, we've learned from things that we did this year, and that helped us get to where we are right now. And as next year happens, we will learn more from it, and that will help us make a better calendar the following year.
And I think with clear students and staff, that's our priority, especially if the parents are 50-50. And students and staff, in my opinion, should be our priority. If we keep them happy, I think everybody's happy, so.
And isn't the recruiting of teachers and staff members part of this was part of the reason for that we showed different than everybody sitting on each side of you at a recruitment place?
Yes, and employee retention, the
Right.
employees that we have now, we're trying to keep, and they've shared, if you could do anything to give us a break each month, it would be most appreciated.
So we need to really, if this is forward, we need to really stress that.
Yeah, I think one thing to notice, though, even with the percentages, the bar graph,
Students aren't paying.
it looks, very, very leaning toward A. But I think if you go back and look at the percent of increases, right, from last year to this year, there is only,
Students especially.
students represent a 4% increase. Parents represent a 56% increase. And so I think that really indicates that there's very strong feelings, probably both sides of this equally, but parents are really the ones that came out and contributed again, almost 56.
And community.
Yeah, community went up 20% from, 20% of the increase was from community. I'm sorry, not percent difference, but 20% of the increase was community. And again, those two, parents and community, are the two on the bar graph that are neck and neck, right? So I won't be shy. I have some reservations of giving a week off in October. I don't think it's an issue of sports. I think it's becomes an issue of learning retention, because you're taking weeks off in October, a week off in November, 2 weeks off in December. Now, if that time is used wisely to get caught up, it can be very effective. I get in trouble every time I say this, but I'm a huge fan of year-round school with 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off. My daughter's not here to throw stuff at me this time around. But so I appreciate those breaks, but I think we need to be, I think as was mentioned before, parents are going to be either in one side or the other. It's going to be a 50-50 split. And, I think it's innovative. I think there's lots of good reasons to go forward with calendar A and to see it, but I
And I do see your point, because it's also from where you're looking at it. My child enjoys it, loves the breaks, and does use it, like I said, Mark, to actually catch up, and comes back stronger, but he has a very good support system at home. So I can imagine that if you don't have that support system, you're just simply wasting the week, and like you said, everything that the momentum that you had going before that, so I could see that
There'll
argument
be
as well.
statistical data to be able to learn from this this year.
Yes.
I would love, along the lines of what is being said here, and Mark started, is that if we had a actually organized way like we do in the summer, to, at least on a limited scale, to have the catch up in our schools for the kids that truly are behind. Why wait till the summer to try to fix it if you could do it in October? Because you've identified it early on. And I think it'd be a shame, maybe I should word it that strongly, but that is a wonderful opportunity to at least offer some remedial work, not just at home, not where the parents have to do it, but where we do it, because they're not going to get it at home in a lot of families. So I can more readily support it. I'm not thrilled about it either, just because of the reasons stated. I think if we're really looking at long periods with no breaks, you can look at the spring, and we better start adding some more weeks off in the spring too, because it's long periods there. There's not much of a break, and so where does it end? So I do like the idea of remediation. I think this is going to be, as you said, a trial. I don't know that the obviously the vast majority of parents did not speak. It would have shocked the heck out of me if the students didn't support this. Hey, it's a week off.
Never. And the staff, let's be honest, I would be right there along supporting it.
And I'm just worried about, I understand that the Boys and Girls Club and the Alphabet, I understand they probably do have good intention, but my concern is the number of students they're gonna have. How many can they actually handle in one day? If they're short-staffed, or if they don't have enough staff, what's gonna happen when that ratio is no balance? What are we gonna do? You go back home, or where are they gonna go? Because we're closed, they don't have anywhere to go, and I'm worried about those parents that might have to take off work because there's a problem with their child going somewhere, or they can't afford to send their child somewhere, or you know, I'm concerned about that week. What are they gonna eat? We have that problem all the time. What are they gonna eat that whole week? What's gonna go on actually in that house? School is their safe haven. And, you know, I kind of worry about that. I know everybody needs a break, and the break is good, but, you know, I worry about the kids and what kind of environment they're gonna be in. And they have, like I said, they might have good intentions to say, hey, we'll take all you got. We got 17,000 kids. They can't take everybody at the Boys and Girls Club, Alpha Best. It's just not possible.
And that overload that could be, you know, could happen in these communities, specifically the Boys and Girls Club. It's, you know, if COVID has taught us anything, it's this learning loss that we have had, and seeing these weeks off are again just adding to the possibility of just additional loss. These are 4 whole weeks in the school year.
So I'll say that some people have heard me say this before. I've taught classes on where's the future of education going, and we're not there yet. But the reason we have the kind of calendar we have, where we start in August and we end in May, is why. It's because of agriculture. It was to allow kids to work in agriculture in the summertime. Not many of our kids are doing that today. So then why do we have the calendar we have? It's history, it's tradition, it's what we expect to do. Unfortunately, the calendar that we use in public schools is not the best model for student learning. So, I mean, I'm not suggesting that this board tonight say, we're throwing it all out and we're gonna go year round. I'm not saying that, hear me. I think we went through process, we've done what we have done, we've gotten important, valuable feedback from all our different stakeholders, but I challenge us as a district moving forward to think about what do we value. And if it's children first always, then we shouldn't just value where students go in a 1 week in October. What are they doing then? We ought to be thinking about where are they all summer, because that's when a lot of things happen, unfortunately, where no one is looking, where students aren't fed, where they're not supervised, where there is tremendous learning loss is in the summertime. And I would also challenge us not to think about remediation, though we need to do that. It needs to be about enrichment and how we can enrich our children's lives in all the ways that we hope kids do and have access to.
It can be both.
It can be both, but if all we do is focus on remediation, we miss the opportunities to do enrichment too. Some students may need remediation in one thing and enrichment in another. I mean, they're all unique, and we need to serve them where they're at.
I appreciate you saying that. We've talked about this a little bit, and it will be part of curriculum as we move forward throughout the year and plan in the summer of how units finish up. What is something that we could do over that week break? What is something that's one of those little extra activities that might be a little bit of remediation for one student and acceleration for another that we could have there just in case they need it over that time frame?
And I think one thing that's going to really help facilitate this, and I'm going to be very interested to see, is the Forecast 5 data.
Yes,
Comparing, we've got 1 full year of data underneath us, and I mean, that's just our view of it, but the whole map data, everything underneath it that can really tell us where those individual students are. We've got the data now. Are we using that data effectively to help facilitate these innovative changes to the calendar and in other areas of the school as well?
Okay, lots of discussion. Any other discussion? Please tell me y'all aren't gonna vote for calendar B.
You can vote anything you want except calendar
No,
B.
y'all can vote how you wanna vote, but
The choice is yours.
there was a blank where it said calendar, so recommending calendar blank on our agenda said. It's
I
calendar.
move approval.
That's good.
I move approval of the 2023-2024 District Instructional Calendar A as presented.
Second.
Drum.
Thank you. All right, it has been moved by Mr. McCall and seconded by Dr. Davis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you, Ms. Willett. We appreciate all your work on the calendar.
Thank you, ma'am.
And next, normally it's Dr. Ibarra yeah,
One more calendar.
one more calendar, and then we move to your thing. So next is consider approval of the 2023-2024 Bryan Collegiate calendar.
Yes, so thank you, Donna Willett, for your leadership. I was with Donna in that meeting in October when we kicked off this process, and it's been a fun journey. So I'm here tonight to ask for a minor adjustment to for a calendar for Bryan Collegiate. I'm just simply asking the early dismissal days that we have that you just approved in August, September, October, November, February, and April. Those little red triangles be removed from the Bryan Collegiate calendar. Bryan Collegiate actually dismisses every Friday early at 1:50. That's when our teachers do professional development and meet with me, so we don't need to do those. And we're asking to remove those also to mitigate the impact on instruction with the blend classes that happen on my campus throughout the week, Monday through Thursday. So.
Well, nobody was thinking of you, I guess, when we talked about the week in October, but is that gonna work okay with you?
So I've talked with my counterparts at Blinn, and we're coming up with a plan for that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I move approval of the 2023-2024 Bryan Collegiate High School calendar as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Dr. Davis and seconded by Ms. Benford to approve that calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Calendar approved.
Thank you very much.
And now, Dr. Ibarra, you did not have calendars this year. You had something more fun.
School boundaries.
Yes.
We are coming into the home stretch in terms of this process. I was here with the Board of Trustees last week going over the recommendation from the School Boundaries Oversight Committee and Administration with school boundaries and what our recommendation was. And we've let it be out there in the community for a week. We've sent a notification to the families along with the link where you can look up your address to see how you're directly impacted by the recommendation. And I'm here this evening to go as a brief overview of that process so everyone listening and watching will have the background information. But I'm here this evening asking for your recommendation, or for a recommendation for approval. So just as a quick reminder of all the things that we've been through over the past semester, we are here to discuss boundaries for intermediate and elementary campuses only. And this is in preparation for the very exciting opening of Sadbury Intermediate, where Mr. Scott will no longer be party of one. He will have additional students and staff to work with and to grow next year. And with that opportunity to develop the boundary for Sadbury Intermediate, we also have the opportunity to adjust some and balance some enrollment at the elementary level that's becoming problematic. And so we'll go over the identified needs here in a little bit, but our process was extensive. We formed a committee called the School Boundaries Oversight Committee that was made of parents, community members, campus staff, and district staff. And that team met regularly and provided oversight of all of the feedback coming in from all of the focus groups. So we would hold a focus group, and every bit of feedback would go straight back to this committee with ideas for changing it, recommendations, and preferences. Through that process, we've gone through many iterations of possible boundary adjustments to address the identified needs. We've also launched a district website where all of the presentations to the Board of Trustees have been made public. We continued into November and December with additional focus groups. We also launched a survey in December. In total, between all of the focus groups and the survey, we've engaged and gotten feedback from over 1,300 stakeholders about the development of these boundaries. The identified needs that were developed by the School Boundaries Oversight Committee were the 6 that are on the screen to address the underutilization of Neal Elementary. We have a very stable community around Neal Elementary, and the students have aged out and the families are there, but the children have grown. And so we need to increase enrollment at Neal Elementary. Branch, Henderson, and Johnson are overutilized and need balancing. Again, the good news is we have available space at all of our elementary schools to make these slight balancing of enrollment to be able to more adequately serve the students on the campus. We'd like to see an increase of the number of students in the emergent bilingual program at Crockett, and that's specific to the isolation that we're seeing with students at Crockett. When there's only one classroom, you don't have a partner teacher. You also have a very small group of students. If you're a kiddo, that you got the same 19 to 22 students, you're with them in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and it would be better for their language and linguistic acquisition to be engaging with a larger group of students. And so we'd like to see that be increased. And then, of course, to prepare boundaries for Sadbury. Again, when we look at the school boundaries and the School Boundaries Oversight Committee, the purpose was to make purposeful changes and needed changes, not change for change's sake. It was important that it was tied to a need and tied to feedback from stakeholders. As a reminder, these were the 2 options that were put out in the survey, and it was pretty overwhelming. This was the feedback from option 1. Again, the green being you strongly supported that particular aspect of option 1, and the orange being you had strong opinions against that particular option. When you compare the feedback from option 1 just visually to option 2, it is quite different. Option 2 was preferred in every single category: pre-kindergarten, the elementary school boundary adjustment, the emergent bilingual program adjustment, the dual language, and then, of course, the intermediate. So in all aspects, option 2, every aspect of it was preferred by community and stakeholders. And so when we last spoke, that's what I brought before you. Was the changes for school boundaries that would be coming forward would be reflective of what was in option 2. And again, let's just briefly go through these. In option 2, we have pre-kindergarten. Johnson's pre-kindergarten specifically would attend Bowen Elementary in this model, and that came at the request from the campus administration. Mrs. Thoman was here to speak on behalf of that request in the best interest of pre-kindergarten children. And then we went into various boundary adjustments between small areas of schools. So Branch, Fannin, Henderson, Houston, Jones, Kemp, Mitchell, and Neal saw certain planning units moved from one boundary to another. Emergent bilingual mirrored those same changes that you're going to see from the boundary adjustments. We also saw in this particular recommendation no changes to the dual language program. They would stay at all of the sites they're currently at and continue. And then we saw with intermediate some slight boundary adjustments between Rayburn and Long and Rayburn with the creation of Sadbury Intermediate. In total, when you look at all of the changes that I just went through very rapidly, when you look at your pre-K through 4 population, you're talking about a change for about 300 students in total. Option 1 had a change for about 550 to 600 students. So option 2 had fewer changes, but still addressed and accomplished the balancing of enrollment at the elementary level. And then, of course, intermediate, everyone's going to be new to intermediate because it rises with 5th grade. When we talk about the implementation of school boundaries, this is one of the questions I think we've gotten the most question about. If there's going to be change, how is it implemented? And again, this falls back to board policy FC local, where the students who are rising to a capstone year, in this case, it would just be the 4th graders, current 3rd graders who will be in 4th grade next year. If their boundary is changing under these adjustments, they may stay at the school they are currently enrolled at and complete their elementary educational time at that same school. However, we will not be able to provide transportation, and if there are younger siblings, they would also need to go to the new school. Otherwise, we never get to the new boundaries. We never actually get to the balancing, and we can't balance staff. And again, just as a quick reminder, when I'm talking about balancing enrollment, Branch Elementary is projected to continue to grow that particular area. And right now, the core infrastructure of the building, cafeteria, has 1 serving line. they have enough students where they need 2 serving lines. And so they've had to create a makeshift serving line to be able to serve the students. So we've got available space at other campuses with minor adjustments. We can balance and adequately serve and staff for those students. And then pending the board's consideration of the recommendation this evening, next step would include working with our partners at Cooperative Strategies and PASA Demographics to get all of this coded into, or geocoded into our student information system, and then direct notification to families specific to your child's next year school would be, or is in this situation. We also have principals eager to see those lists because they want to welcome the new students. Mr. Scott is ready to start going, I think, door to door to his students. So they want to welcome them. They want to start making those connections. We've talked about arranging field trips to the extent that we can for the students to visit their new school so that they're more comfortable. And then it's not a new place to go in August. It's a return to a place they've been and they've already had positive experiences with them, and inviting them to the parent involvement activities this spring at those same campuses. So again, coming before you this evening, seeking your approval of the recommendation of administration and the School Boundaries Oversight Committee for the changes described.
May I ask a question? I know I talked about it a little bit last time. So
Certainly.
my concern is their transfer window. So if we were to approve this, what is the drop dead date on submitting a transfer request, or to stay in the same school? I guess it's not
window.
transfer, to stay at the same school.
So February 17th. So it's open right now. It opened late last week, and it's open through February 17th. Right now, everyone can go look up their addresses, and that was a direct notification to all parents, but they'll also receive a direct communication making sure they understood what that was and that it applied to their child.
Okay, so they have a month. I mean, once we,
Yes,
from
absolutely.
here on out, they have a month. Is that enough time? And I know we need to give the principals time, we need to give
Certainly.
everybody else time, and I know that's a consideration as well, but I would just hate for somebody to fall through the cracks.
I think if it's on our part, that we're going to work with the family, for certainly. But I think a lot of it, again, it's a small population of fourth graders. Of the 300 total changes, only so many of them are rising to be fourth graders. So it's a much smaller population to make sure we're absolutely certain with.
Okay, but you think that's enough time, fair enough for everybody?
Yes, sir.
We're good with it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank the committees, the committee that looked at this and everything. And as I said at the workshop, you know, it's clear the obvious favor, and it appears to be the least impactful, but we do know it'll impact some of those. It will impact some students and some families, some of which requested a change.
They
So
did.
I know there's one little population that has a sidewalk going to one school, and
Yes.
they have in their zone to another school. So we were able to accommodate, those requests. So I do appreciate that. But I have one question. Is this starting out, 2 months, 3 months this summer? When you kind of mapped out these two plans, is this the one that you had envisioned?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, we went down lots of different trails in terms of what it should be. And again, going back to the committee, many of those committee members took their evenings to come to the focus groups to hear directly from the parents, so that when they were making decisions and we were looking at boundaries, this or that or this, it was like, well, how about that? Okay, we can go back and take a look at that. Like, they knew straight from the stakeholders where the angst was, where the preference was, and they also knew the data side of that 10-year projection for enrollment, knowing that we can't leave it as is, but what can we do to mitigate the impact on families? But again, several different versions.
So this was not a predetermined plan that got pushed through. I just want to make it clear that
Yes,
the
sir.
committee, the community input, everybody had an impact in shaping and shifting the
This
plan
is a
to what it
puzzle
is
that you
today.
didn't see the end result until you put the final piece in. Yes, sir.
Dr. Bart, to that point, I represent, one of the schools is Johnson, and
Yes, ma'am.
so at the very first meeting, and we were looking at the boundaries, I saw something, I thought, oh, wow, I don't know you know, knowing the Johnson area particularly, and then we were talking about moving pre-K because of the open atmosphere, and so I thought, I want to talk to Amy, the principal, and you said, no, not because things are going to change, just wait a little bit. And so finally, through all the different changes, she and I had our final conversation today, and I said, boy, there were so many times I wanted to come to you and ask you about it, but Barbara kept going, this is fixing to change. So whatever you're thinking right now, it may not even be the same thing next week. And she said, I know, and there was a lot of times I had questions too, but she said that throughout the whole, or now that it's all said and done, she's not had any begruntled parents calling or talking to her about it, and she's thrilled with the way you listened, or, you know, the district listened to their open concept, not needing sweet little pre-K kids learning how to do school, and that there was just relatively few that were really impacted, and they understand and they're working through it. And I could not have had that conversation with her if I had called her and talked to her about it at the very beginning, because things changed and morphed so much during the process, and that's what Mark was talking about.
Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Thoman, and then also Mrs. Bruner, Dr. Velez, Mrs. Earhart, all of them also weighed into this. The most wonderful thing is how much our families love their schools. They love them.
And we talked about that too.
And our schools love their families. And so it's a difficult process to consider not having the exact same families you have now and welcoming their siblings in years to come. It's hard for our principals, it's hard for our families. So when we were faced with certain boundary adjustments and what about this or that, we went also to the principals as well as the parents and said, talk to us about this. Which ones make the most sense for your community? And I know Dr. Velez and Mrs. Bruder, one conversation with them in particular, it's like, well, this makes the most sense. These kids are actually closer to Jones. They could walk to Jones, but we're transporting them away from the school closest to them in this situation. And so a lot of the feedback of the boundary changes came from the parents asking that we not have pre-K in open concept school. Parents also asked for that. And then also from the principals looking and working with their families and their own internal groups. So really proud of the participation from all of the entities as well as the School Boundaries Oversight Committee.
And there was, Mark, a lot of opportunity at all of the community meetings and they were located in all different areas so that all parents, all community, no matter where you were able to attend those meetings to have input on these decisions. And as Barbara said, she would come back with more paper the next week. And one of the committee members is Pastor Hill. He was here at every meeting and got a chance to really see a different side of how we do business or how we make these decisions. It's not just making decisions to try to make people unhappy. It's trying to make decisions for the best of everyone. So it's not just, you know, I had a lady call me and she said, well, you're affecting this race, a minority. That's not what it's about. It's about getting some of these schools that are overcrowded, getting some of those children into classrooms where there are less students, and making these changes to make the schools better. And somebody's going to get affected and get touched, and nobody wants to move, but in the end, what's going to be the best for the learning and for the child? And so I think Pastor Hill, you know, I appreciate him being at those meetings and going with us to the community meetings also to hear what they were saying, so that as board members, we didn't just come back and say what we thought. He came back and he was actually able to come back and say what the people actually said there, and it not be coming from anybody in the district, but someone from the outside. And I think that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, at our last workshop, you had a few people
Yes, ma'am.
that served on those committees come speak to us, and I mean, I sincerely want to thank all the members of that committee, because I know it's been an arduous process for a long time. It's been iterative, so just when you think you know the answer, it changes. So I just want to commend them for their efforts to try to figure out the problem and what the solution might be. We knew we're opening Sadbury, we have to make a change, it's a perfect time to rebalance schools, so I just really want to thank everyone. I really appreciated hearing from those committee members, from the community and from parents who had engaged for so long.
They truly probably didn't know what all they were signing up for when they accepted my email invitation, but I couldn't have been more grateful for their work, their dedication, and their transparency and how they operated with all of it. It was really tremendous.
It is amazing the amount of work, because running for school board, people are like, well, how do they choose these boundaries? They just arbitrarily decide that, well, we don't want people here, and they don't realize how much research and public input. I would never realize how much public and parental input is involved in this, and that's extremely important. When I'm hearing from other parents, well, they just pick the boundaries. They should pick something that is better for the community, and how are they doing this, and why is my child so thank you for making that very clear, and it is, y'all done a lot of work and did an amazing job, and I just can't imagine looking at that many different possibilities, and like the rest of you're saying, you change one thing and it changes everything else, and then so again, just wanted to say thank you. It's amazing the amount of work that you and everyone else did on this.
And Mr. Historical.
I want to just reiterate, you mentioned transparency a couple of times. Everything that they did is on our website. So if anyone missed a meeting or missed a board meeting, it's all out there. So the committee did a fantastic job, especially the parents and community members serving. They gave up many days and nights to travel along this journey, so they're much appreciated.
And I'd say committees you can pull a bunch of really good people together, but if you don't have someone at the helm shepherding them and pushing that process along, it won't go anywhere. So thank you, Dr. Barr, for leading that so graciously.
It was a pleasure with working with that team. Absolute
Historical
pleasure.
Perspective wants to say that it wasn't always that way. And so that's a credit to the effort y'all put into it. Now, I will say, might have been a little more challenging had it been a new high school or.
Yeah, we're not going to talk
I'm
about
gonna-
that.
I can tell you that.
Elementary and intermediate, sir.
So if we ever have to do that, you be prepared. But no, it is a
Dr.
credit.
Barr is going to leave town.
I'm sorry, I think I'm off that week.
I usually blame Mr. Stasny anyway when they were complaining, so, it's fine.
Thank you very much.
I move approval of the recommendations for elementary and intermediate school boundaries as presented.
Second.
Everybody.
Right. So it was moved by Dr. Davis and seconded by Ms. Waller. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All opposed, say no. Motion is approved.
Can we do like a little hand? All right, good job. Thank you.
You get applause too. Okay. All right. The board will now convene in closed session for Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, .074, Personnel Matters. The time is now 8:34. Did I get it right? Okay.
I'm out back. Don't worry.
And I'm back here. Okay.
Reconvened in open session at 9:05 PM. No action was taken in closed session. There being no further business, let the record show that the meeting was adjourned at 9:05.
Oh, Leo, what are you talking about? Oh, thank you.